started an outline of a story, which George borrowed some ideas from I Am Legend, and he created an outline for what eventually would become Night of the Living Dead. And there were group meetings of what if this happened, what if that happened, and eventually it was the responsibility of George and John Russo to take all those what ifs and knit them together into a script somehow.
Now, working with George Romero is the godfather of the zombie movies, basically. Did you know at the time what you were making was going to become iconic for horror royalty forever? Did it feel that way?
Jack Russo said that he knew right from the very beginning that we were going to create a classic. None of the rest of us had any clue. It was our first feature film. It was self-financed, and I would say it was hard getting the film made, persuading people. A movie had never been made in Pittsburgh before. There had been scenes from films shot, Angels in the Outfield and that kind of thing, but never a homegrown film in Pittsburgh. And people thought we were literally out of our minds. So with our own money, we had to start filming to persuade other people, other investors, oh, these folks can actually pull this together. And that's the way it worked out. For anybody, Judith became one of the shareholders, Carl was a shareholder, Marilyn was a shareholder. Eventually, the project developed kind of a momentum and a steam all of its own.
So it's a team effort.
Yeah, completely. If anybody comes by my table, I have, with the notable exception of Kyra, who didn't happen to be there that day, a photo of basically the crew that worked on the film.
And it's just a handful of people.
Yeah, you think of a movie crew these days and you're talking 125, 150 people. This was
a skeleton.
Yeah, you could put us all in a minivan. But it was absolutely a team effort, and everyone, absolutely everyone. You talk about esprit de corps. That is exactly what it was. Finally, people thought, well, maybe these people aren't completely insane, and the newspapers started noticing it, and a very, very big contributor was a local TV personality by the name of Bill Cardill. He got behind it, and he did a Saturday night chiller theater, and he helped promote it a lot. But it was a kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of operation.
Make it happen for yourself.
Yeah.
So all these guys are working really hard to make this go, and you're a little 9-year-old, and you got tired of just sitting still on the set.
No, actually not really. I mean, there were times that it was a little bit boring, but mostly I found it pretty engaging. It was interesting. I was really interested in seeing. I had the bandage that I was wearing. I don't have the dress, sadly.
Yeah.
My mother gave that away when I, to Goodwill or something.
Oh gosh, can you imagine being in Goodwill and being like, what is this?
Well, it wasn't recently, but it was.
Sure. Yeah.
So if anything, if I outgrew something or something wore out, off it went to.
You didn't think about keeping it at that time, yeah?
Of course not,
Yeah.
no. But I did, the only thing that I had in terms of props, I do still have some of the makeup.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, I have that.
That can of chocolate syrup, you got it.
No chocolate syrup, no.
Did any of you keep anything from the movie?
I still use some of it.
You're using it right now.
Judith. In fact, for years I did have I'm sorry, Judy and Judy, it's hard, but I did have the dress for a while, had the jacket, my fake London fog, but as you've heard, with moves over the years and now over the decades, They sort of went by the wayside and the goodwill side, etc. And now I wish I had at least the fall, but I don't. I don't.
No, I didn't realize the significance of the clothing at the time. I had the jean jacket for a while, and sadly, the jeans I used as painting pants. I just didn't realize how important they were. I really wish now that I had.
Yeah, I don't think there was quite the emphasis on props and
Yeah, who knew at that
as there is
time?
now. I think there's, much more collecting now than there was then.
Very much so. We have a first question over at the microphone. Hi, what's your name?
Hey guys, it's Jeb. We were just talking
Oh, yes.
right before you guys came over. So I wanted to know, did George ever use the word zombie on set? Because any interview, he always referred to them as either flesh eaters or ghouls.
Right.
No, yet nada.
So was it a no word or just?
Well, no,
It
we
wasn't-
were
yeah.
ghouls, or
It was ghouls, yeah.
ghouls rather than zombies.
The connotation, both George and John Russo agreed from the beginning that the word zombie had Haitian voodoo kind of connotation to it, so they purposely used only the word ghoul.
Yes. Okay, that makes sense. Did you, okay, so looking back at it now, and it kind of was a film before its time, having a mixed race cast and having a black male lead, did you care or know or think that was a statement at the time, or was just the right person for the job?
In fact, he was visiting family in Pittsburgh. Who was it who got him into the audition? Betty Ellen said, "You got to hear this guy. He's from New York. He loves theater. I think he would be wonderful." Dwayne Jones auditioned. And literally, he was the best that they had seen. It wasn't a question. It didn't matter if he was black. We just didn't think that way. None of us did. I think we were all brought up and we're all people.
Yes.
That's one of the things that I love best about our film, is that no mention was made of a black man in the film. And that's the way I think it should be.
That's absolutely the way it should be, and to add to that, the person who was most concerned about being cast in the film was Dwayne himself. He realized that in order to try to snap Barbara out of her catatonia, that there was going to be a confrontation and try to slap her, and you have to understand that there were parts of the country that in 1968 was just not acceptable. There are still parts of this country that it's not acceptable, but Dwayne had more concern about it than we did. Originally, Ben was to have been played by a friend of ours, Rudy Ritchie, but in the casting session, which was on Easter weekend, 1967, when Dwayne came back to a suburb of Pittsburgh to visit his family for Easter weekend, provided a perfect opportunity for him to audition, which Betty Ellen Haughey arranged because she was a mutual friend of both the George Camp and Dwayne in New York. And we auditioned him that weekend, and it was a unanimous hands down. Carl was there, Marilyn was there, Russo, myself. It was unanimous that as soon as Dwayne auditioned, he had to be Dwayne. Now, I mentioned earlier about financing the picture. Here's where it worked out well. We ended up scratching together $60,000 in cash money.
That's a lot of money at that
to
time.
make Night of the Living Dead. The eventual budget turned out to be around $115,000. That was with deferments and so forth. But $60,000, and because we pulled it together ourselves,
Of shooting. Money ran out. We needed to make more. George and company went back to Leighton Village to continue making industrial films, etc., corporation films. Carl Hardman went back with Marilyn and the crew to Hardman Associates to do audio recordings, commercials, etc., until enough money was earned from both their camps and also people, as Russ said, who had gained interest and belief in the potential for this film. And then a few more people were able to add to that pot. We then came back and did another 2 weeks of shooting. So it was practically a 2-week hiatus for a while, then another 2 weeks before we finally wrapped all the principal shooting, which is then.
we like to think of it as build your own movie.
Yeah.
Build your own adventure,
Legos.
for sure. Next question.
I'm Randy. Thank you all for doing this. Quick question. It's fair to say you were, and you guys are lovely.
Thanks for
by
the
way.
drinks, Randy.
Yeah, you guys are lovely. Great people from not them. Your film changed media. The question I've got, what is your favorite films? I mean, this is obviously one of our favorite films, but what is one of your favorite films?
Jaws. Richard Dreyfuss is a friend of Spooky. He's come and visited us a few times. Did you get a chance to meet him? No, not yet? Come Spooky.
Dante's Peak.
You're gonna think I'm so weird.
We're the weirdos, mister.
The Adventures of Robin Hood with Earl Flynn and To Kill a Mockingbird.
To Kill a Mockingbird, Sleepless in Seattle, and Jaws.
So, those are your favorites. What's a movie that you wish you could have been a part of if it wasn't those? Jaws. Would you have liked to have been a victim?
I'd like to be the star.
Okay. Still got that killer instinct. All right.
Let's see. Gone with the Wind.
Oh, all right. Big dresses and all the grandeur.
Well, it's when one sees you in a certain station or role or genre, sometimes you get stuck there.
Sure.
And then I began theater in musical theater. Did Maria in The Sound of Music and Eliza in My Fair Lady. That was my era and my love. Also, The Ghost of Mrs. Wonderful genre.
You have all this going on, and everyone just wants to see you suffer.
Yeah. And I should be forever grateful, because not only did you give me a legacy, you have given us all a wonderful legacy we never dreamed would happen. So this is sort of a mutual love society here. Without you, we wouldn't be. And without the magic of our little movie, you wouldn't have had this. And so I'm so grateful we have that connection.
What's a movie you would have liked to have been in?
Any Cary Grant movie.
Oh.
I wanted to be Cary Grant. And after I thought about it for a while, well, wherever you are, Cary, here's a challenge for you. I would have liked to seen you do Johnny.
Completely different film.
Get you, Barbara.
She would have been fine with it. And you?
Anything with Audrey Hepburn.
Oh, yes. Style and grace. Absolutely. We have our next question.
Hi, my name's Otis. I was wondering, does anybody know what happened to the Pontiac from the beginning of the film?
Okay, that was the worst part of the movie for me. That poor car, that beautiful car crashing in. Oh my goodness.
Well, as we've been saying, it was a team effort. The Pontiac LeMans was my mother's car.
Oh! Some gave all. Yeah.
The wrinkle, literally, that turned out was this, coincidentally, the cemetery scene when Barbara and Johnny drive up was the very first day of filming. We did the fight between Bill Heinzman and myself. That didn't happen. We ran out of time during the first day. So we kept postponing. It ended up to be also the last day of filming. In between time, someone crashed into my mother's car. And so now we've got a damaged Pontiac LeMans. But my brother Gary and I said, don't get your car fixed because we have to figure out a way that Barbara is going to be able to stop the car when she doesn't have the keys. She's going to have to coast it down a hill. We're going to have to stop it somehow. We'll crash it into a tree. And my mother went along with it. She didn't turn it into the insurance company. Until we got our scene filmed. It looks in the film as though Barbara crashes into a tree. The damage together with him, just a few miles apart, so we were quite familiar with Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. George, in our production company, George did a couple of episodes with Mr. Rogers with the picture-picture part of his show, and it was Fred Rogers goes to the hospital for a tonsillectomy. And George filmed that, and it was part of the relationship. As a matter of fact, when we were looking for Barbara, Betty Aberlin, who played Lady Aberlin on Fred's TV show, we talked about the possibility of Betty Aberlin being a candidate for Barbara, and in discussing it with Fred Rogers, he thought that was not a great idea for Lady Aberlin to be in
The
a
crossover. Yeah. That's something I didn't know. That's a really cool tidbit that George Romero directed some of Fred Rogers. That's so great. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, completely different look now. So after the movie came out, what was the response from your friends and family?
Oh, they were thrilled. My father and mother loved the fact that I began a career in singing and on the stage. They were so very supportive. In fact, when we had the big posse scene with so many people, George was saying, well, you've got to bring people in. We need to have the posse, we need that body support. Well, we had a gourmet cook, we had the owner of a car sales thing, and the different people that we brought in, they gave him a gun. My father never really held guns before, but he was excited. He had a gun. George said, now about quarter mile down there, I want you all to get in a big line, and when I give you the action, we're going to film you from helicopter, and we'll get you crossing across the open space. They all trooped down with guns in hand, my father included. Action! They all came into there, going along with their guns, and my father gave it everything he had. When they reached the end, we've done it. And George said, all right, I want you to all go back. We're going to do it again. They ended up redoing that shot from all kinds of different angles. By the time we were finished, my father literally was just dragging that rifle. You know, making movies isn't always as easy as you think.
It's not all glamour.
Yeah.
Did everybody else have their family see the movie and what their response was? I mean, obviously yours did, yeah.
Of course, I was at the premiere with my dad. I think my mother went. Yeah, my mother did go too. My mother and I used to watch horror movies, you know, when I was a kid, and I'm not sure that was her favorite movie, you know. You know, I don't know why. I mean, I think she preferred The Crawling Eye. Yeah, I mean, my friends obviously were the same age as me, and they were thrilled about it. There was one kid in the neighborhood who used to tease me, and he was the first person who used the word zombie that I ever heard. I didn't know him very well, but somehow, you know, I became like a target of his, like, taunting.
Jealous.
Yeah, I think so. So, yeah, everybody thought it was cool. My godparents were like investors, but they lost their investment certificate, so they could never prove they were, I don't know, I guess after years of not getting any returns, they just pitched it, you know, so.
Aside, my folks, as I said, were very pleased to be involved and to have me involved. But they received, once the film came out, they received calls and such from people saying, how could you let your dog be in a film like that?
Oh, yeah, I guess that.
Yeah, there was negative feedback.
Yeah.
There was
Dwayne Jones was going to be our guy. And someone, I don't know who it was, said, well, maybe because Barbara has been yearning for Johnny. Johnny has the keys. We have to find Johnny. We got to get to Johnny. Maybe Johnny needs to be reprised when the house is under its final siege. Everybody said, that's a good idea. Let's do that. So that's when the tear in Barbara's eye went astray. Now, it was never ever, we saw Johnny drag Barbara out of the house. We don't know really what happened to her. Maybe Barbara's still out there somewhere, who knows?
She's sitting next to you. We could hope.
In fact, there is a young writer out in the world called Matt Cloud. About 5-6 years ago, maybe longer than that, he sent me a script. He said, we want to pay homage to George and to your film. We want to do a film called Night of the Living Dead Genesis. We would like you to reprise your role as Barbara. He sent me the script. There is a twist in that storyline that has to do with what you just heard from Russ. The film opens in an insane asylum affair. Barbara is being interviewed. Now this is decades later. Barbara is being interviewed by a reporter. It would seem that she did survive. Now you learn at the very beginning how she survived, what happened, and then actually in her telling her tale, you see the entire Night of the Living Dead all over again. The film ends, and I'm not going to do a spoiler here, but oh God, maybe I've said too much already.
No, it's good.
But you come back to Barbara at the end. She wraps up her tale. You've seen the entire Night of the Living Dead and how it came through her eyes. But there's a little catch at the end. Matt Cloud never totally finished that film for whatever reason, got involved in other things. Over the years, people have said, well, aren't you ever going to get Genesis out? I just heard from Matt a short while ago. He said, I am going to get this film.
So we need to look out for it.
Yeah, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that before I die, at least I'll be able to see
Yeah,
it.
I think you guys are ready for it. So to wrap things up, I know, sorry, it's time to wrap it up, but we have some things you guys are doing that we can look forward to. You were telling me about, this is the best title, I love it. What's the movie that we need to look out for?
People have said, do you still do theater, or did you just stop with night? And I said, no, I've been lucky to go on and do some wonderful, fun things. I just got back from a shoot in Canada, Windsor, Canada. Young writer-director wrote and said, would you read this? Would you be this cameo for us? I get to play Elvira. Yeah. And boy, they had to do a lot of makeup and building for that. Me?
I think anybody playing Elvira is gonna have a little.
But the movie is called Vampire Zombies ... in Space. Look it up. I hope it comes out this year. It's going to be a hoot.
I mean, you couldn't put together a better title for that. Does anybody else have things that they're working on or some charities that you'd like to support and promote?
Yeah, well, I'm still doing jewelry. I have an Etsy shop called Half Light Hollow. And I'm involved with a cat rescue actually in Los Angeles. I don't live there, I live in central Pennsylvania, but it's called Lifelines for Felines. So,
Lifelines for Felines?
Yes.
Very nice. Down there, sir.
Yeah, Johnny, being serious for a moment. This country's under attack. And I hope that all of you, in addition to being movie fans, you're also fans of our government and our democracy. Some people are trying to play with it, and I wish you would all get engaged in having them not pull our democracy apart. And so, rather than ending on a low note, I'm going to surprise Barbara with something that I've been wanting to hear for decades. I am interested in her saying my line to me. This is a first.
Camera's out.
Spooky Empire deserves a first. This is a worldwide first. Barbara doing Johnny's line to him.
They're coming to get you, Johnny.
Was it everything you were hoping for? Was it everything you were hoping for?
Everything.
Everything. And Judith, I'll give you the last one. Do you have anything you'd like for us to talk about or look forward to?
Well, I live a rather private life, quiet, mostly retired, and in Arizona. But I do love the Arizona Humane Society. That would be the area of. I'm very fond of rescuing animals, and I love genealogy and my family.
It was an honor to have all of you